People have been asking me to cover the basics in behavior red animation, so in this video, I'm going to summarize what's happening in the story, explain why it's happening, and give you some fun facts about all the characters. Now, as I'm sure you all know, this animation is based off Katie's original animation called The Fundamental Paper Education. This version is the Danger alternate universe and takes place 3 years after the events of the original Basics in Behavior. But instead of being in a regular school, everyone has been relocated to a military school. And as you can see, almost immediately, Abby is alive. Now, apparently, in this universe, after Miss Circle, Miss Thavel, and Miss Bloomy went on their rampage, Principal Grace actually got them arrested and sent to prison. But soon after that, she got word from a military general that war was upon them and that she would need to create a fighting force. So she decided to open up a new military school, get the 3 teachers out of prison, and recruit her old students for the war. And I don't really know how, but students like Claire, Abby, and Lana have all been resurrected. But even though they're all at war with some unknown enemy, things are not all that different at this new school. We see this in the opening scene when Abby is walking down the hall and looking at the starboard, which seems to track the achievement of students. And honestly, I'm not surprised to see that the bullies are doing well in this wartime. And I guess if I'm being honest, I'm equally not surprised to see that Engel is also like a top student here. I'm sure we all remember how he went toe-to-toe with Miss Circle, even if it was only for a moment. But the important part about this scene is that Abby ended up getting 0 points, meaning that not only did he perform the worst, but he really didn't perform at all. And to my surprise, the teacher that seemed to be the most upset about this was Miss Bloomy, which if you remember the original animation, she seemed to be the one that was most reluctant to harm children out of the 3 mean teachers. But in this new universe, she's become much more violent and is even like an assassin that specializes in taking out students that are underperforming, which is why we see her actually chasing Abby down. Now, the second big surprise for me was seeing that Miss Circle seemed to be shocked that Bloomy was hunting down this kid. It seemed like prison also changed her and made her a bit kinder towards not only the children, but to people in general. And I also think that if she, or if any of the other teachers hurt the students, Miss Grace will probably punish them all and possibly even send them back to prison. But judging by the fact that Bloomy shoots Abby in the hand, I think it's safe to say that she doesn't care about her freedom as much as Miss Circle does. And a scary fact here is that the only reason that Abby is able to survive Miss Bloomy is because she has the personality of a cat. And what I mean by that is that she likes to stalk her prey and play with it before she actually takes it out. And this is why she shoots Abby in the hand instead of just going for the headshot. If Miss Circle wouldn't have tackled her, she would have just played with her food for a long time before actually putting him down. And if we're being honest, I think the only reason this actually worked out is because Miss Circle is the strongest out of the people in here, except for maybe Alice. I don't think anybody else would have been able to actually get Bloomy. Something else that I found interesting about this scene is that Miss Circle has kind of taken the role of Engel, or at least Engel in the original animation, meaning that she has turned into like a kind of protector for the kids. And while I don't think that she's doing this out of the goodness of her heart, but rather because she just wants to stay free, it is still pretty cool to see her be a good guy for once. Now, with that being said, after Abby escapes, we cut over to a scene of Alice walking down the halls. And for people wondering why Miss Grace allowed Alice to come to the new school, I honestly think it's because she couldn't easily stop her from joining. Meaning that they likely could stop Alice if they all banded together and attacked her, but they would still probably lose people, and I don't think they can afford to do that in wartime. So Miss Grace probably just thought that it would be better to try and use Alice's strength against the enemies, which we learn is an obvious mistake because Alice is up to no good here. As you can tell by the sign in this scene, Alice is going after some type of nuclear weapon because the only reason that she joined this school in the first place is so that she could gather more power for herself. And just a fun fact, the person that Alice ends up clawing here is actually Claire, and while she doesn't take her out Like in the original animation, it is kind of sad and also a little bit funny that even in this alternate universe, Alice is still piecing up Claire for no reason. Now, something that I really loved about this animation though is that the teachers and the principal are actually standing on business this time. And we see this when Miss Grace takes a shot at Alice. And while we don't know what she's actually going to do now that she has this remote control, which I assume gives her like the ability to control some type of nuclear weapon, we can assume that she's not up to anything good because it's Alice. Now that we covered the main lore, let's look at some of the side characters and just some of the fun facts in the animation. And the first thing that I want to note is that while we don't get to see many signs of a war going on, we do get a small glimpse during this clip. We see this military plane flying overhead here, and the way that the night sky is kind of lit up makes it seem like there's a fire in the distance or maybe some type of explosion going off. And I think this may be why you see this kid here kind of looking out into the distance. Next, I want to point out Miss Thavel and the reason why she didn't really play as big of a role in this animation. It seems like after spending 3 years in prison, she's no longer friends with Miss Circle or Bloomy, which is why she doesn't actually follow them around and terrorize children anymore. She has also gone a bit crazy, which is kind of a weird thing to say because she's actually nicer now that she's kind of losing her mind. And just to add on top of that, she's also like an explosive expert now. So she basically spends most of her time now teaching children how to deactivate bombs, or she's like sniffing gunpowder and talking to her grenades. Oliver is pretty much the same as always, meaning that he's still like a rule breaker and he's also still deeply in love with Alice. What I find interesting about him though is that he only has one eye in this universe, and apparently he lost it because of Alice. And while we don't have a lot of details into like what happened there, now that we know that Alice was basically here just to get the nuclear device, it almost feels like she was using Oliver just for her own games, which is kind of sad when you think about it. As for Miss Sasha and also Mr. Demi, they both became basically like military mechanics. Sasha is a more like traditional mechanic, basically just fixing broken equipment and like keeping vehicles up, while Mr. Demi is also a sapper, which means that he basically teaches students how to locate mines and bombs in general. Ingle and Miss Emily didn't get a huge part in this animation, but it seems like they're both medics, which makes sense for both of them in my opinion. While we didn't get to see a whole lot of Miss Emily in the original animation or in this one, she did seem really friendly, so I kind of see her being a medic, and Ingle was always trying to help people, so I kind of see him being a medic too, just because he was so friendly as well. A big change for Miss Circle in this universe is that she now teaches students how to be like safe in the war zone and also how to be leaders. And of course, she still is like a super lover of Oreos. Zip and Edward haven't changed a lot in this new world, but I did find it interesting that Zip's brother is banned from the school. I think it's because he was like blowing stuff up, but I could be wrong. Claire and Abby don't have a lot of new interesting facts as well, but one thing that does stand out about them is how dark their nicknames are. And it seems like a few people in this universe call them the Walking Dead. And I assume this has to do with the fact that both of them ended up being dead in the original animation. But anyhow you cut it, that's kind of like a crazy nickname, mad disrespectful. But with that being said, if you enjoyed this video, make sure to check out this video on the screen here. Subscribe to become a member of the Orseofkorse, and we'll see you tomorrow with another one. Peace, peace.